You may have seen a previous video of mine where I talk about the different damage rates for each gun in Gears 1. If you did, you'd know that the numbers are basically everywhere. And I guess if you didn't watch it, you know now. And since we know that the guide is full of shit when it comes to how much damage each gun does, we're gonna dismiss its flaws and use the guide as a basis to answer something else about the game. We're going to answer the ultimate question. How much health does General RAAM actually have? A naive answer might go with what's in the guide, 3,500. A more refined answer might go with what's in the game's code instead, 3,500, and yeah, that's still wrong. You see, RAAM can take quite a beating. In the game's speedrun, we try to have a full inventory of frags and torque bow bolts since he can be so tanky. Sometimes, it even ends up being barely not enough, making you pull out a sniper or a shotgun just to get the final hit. How much health is all of that exactly? To find out the real answer, we first need to understand the damage of the torque bow. The guide says that this weapon does 708 damage, but that's clearly wrong since you can kill a boomer just by tagging it with a single bolt, and boomers happen to have over 1,000 more health than that. So to find out how much damage this actually does, we first need to understand the damage of the Hammer of Dawn. So now you may be thinking, Flurb, I don't get it. What does the Hammer of Dawn have to do with anything? Just sit tight, my little Flurblets. It'll soon become quite obvious. As you probably already know, the Hammer of Dawn refers to the giant orbital space laser that beams down destruction from the heavens to the location designated by the handheld targeting device. Turns out, this war-ending weapon isn't as powerful in-game as the lore might suggest. One of the game's main mini-bosses, Berserkers, are practically invincible to all weapons until their crunchy exterior is cracked open by the Hammer of Dawn. You would expect this thing to leave a massive crater in the earth, or at least burn down the building we're standing in, but that's all it does. Cracks them open. But this underwhelmingness of the Hammer of Dawn could work to our advantage. Berserkers have more health than boomers, so we may be able to measure torque bow shots against them. Alright boys, don't make me say it. So the guide tells us the total health of a Berserker is 6,500 on casual, scaling up to 12,000 on insane. But it doesn't tell us how much damage the Hammer of Dawn does. And again, if you saw that other video, you'd probably know that that number would be wrong even if it did. Without knowing the damage dealt by the Hammer of Dawn, we don't know how much to subtract from the Berserker's health when finding a baseline for a torque bow shot. We're going to run a little experiment to find out how much it does. In Act 1 and other select parts of the campaign, you're tasked with taking out seeders that are jamming communications by filling the skies with Nemesis. The only way you can kill them is by dropping the Hammer of Dawn's beam onto them for a few seconds because literally every other weapon does absolutely nothing to them. The actual damage that the Hammer of Dawn claims it does in the code isn't even a factor either. I got in the game's configurations to crank up the damage to absurd levels, but it still didn't really kill the seeder any faster. The time to kill a seeder with the Hammer of Dawn is always a beam duration equal to about 1.25 to 1.5 times the max duration of a single laser. I couldn't find exactly where it was defined, but I was able to confirm this suspicion by shortening and lengthening the maximum duration and retesting. When I shortened the Hammer of Dawn's duration, the time to kill the seeders came way down, and when I made the beam last for 2 minutes, well, I sat there wasting my life holding RT for a while. So to figure out the kind of true canonical to gameplay damage this thing does, I repeatedly zapped the seeders with only the immediate drop of the hammer's laser until they died. Doing that, it took a pretty definite 7 hits. Then, if we take the guide's health for a seeder as the truth, which, hey, at least this one matches the code unlike a lot of the weapons, we can divide into that to find out the minimum amount of damage that a single drop from the Hammer of Dawn will do. And that number is about 714. And again, that's just the minimum. It could do all the way up to 833 damage without reducing the number of insta-release hammers needed to kill the seeder. Let's see if we can tighten up the range a little. To get something a little bit more refined, we repeat the same thing with Berserkers. That is, counting up the single drops of the Hammer of Dawn until we take her down. This was really annoying though, since unlike Seeders, Berserkers like to run around really fast and actively try to kill you. But in the end, I found out that it took 8 drops of the hammer to kill, so that means by taking her health from the guide again, that the Hammer of Dawn does at least around 812 damage. Now here's the thing, I'm pretty sure that each time I dropped the hammer, I didn't release the trigger in a totally frame-perfect way. We can only assume that there was a little bit of extra damage being tacked on to each drop of the hammer from the sustained beam. To account for this little bit of human error, we could reduce the 812 to a nicer number since that's kind of the pattern of all the other numbers, so maybe down to say 800 damage. Wait a second, isn't that what's in the code? Bruh. Why can't they just put that in the fucking guide in the first place? And wait, what's this other number? Initial splashdown. Ugh. As a player, I know for sure that the initial splashdown does do more damage, but based on the trials I just ran, this number is literally just wrong because it would kill everything in 2 fewer drops. See how we can't even trust the code? Speaking of not trusting the code, or the guide really, remember we're talking about this. Yeah, that's right. A boomer which supposedly has 1,750 health just died to a single torque bow shot, which supposedly does less than half of that. My guess is that the damage in the guide and in the code refers to the small AoE explosion that happens when you don't stick a target with that shot, and the actual damage is just something else. And since we want to know what that something else is, we're going back to the Berserkers. Check it out. Yeah. After a quick drop of the Hammer of Dawn, the Berserker dies in only 1 torque bow shot. If we do the math on what just happened, we can deduce that getting stuck with a torque bow bolt deals a minimum of 5,700 damage. That's fucking huge. But you know what's even more huge? General RAAM. This fat fuck can eat several torque bow bolts without missing a stride. In fact, if you hit him directly, it takes 10 fucking torque bow bolts to kill him. That means General RAAM's health is at least 57,000. Oh wait, but it gets better. That number is only if each shot is a direct hit. During the fight, RAAM is frequently veiled in his krill shield, which nullifies all damage until you blast it off with an explosive. With his typical rate of recharge, it pretty much means that over the course of the fight, RAAM is likely to absorb 5 or 6 hits with the shield. Now since we only have a max of 12, we don't want to go wasting our precious torque bow ammo popping a stupid little shield. Instead, we can just lob out a few frag grenades to get rid of the krill. But how much damage is a frag? I ran some similar experiments to the ones from before, and though I'm not going to go into details, and though not documented in the guide, frag grenades seem to do about 750 to 800 damage. However, we only have 4 frags to work with, and that leaves us with a few more krill shields to get through, so we'll have to use torque bow shots on those. Bringing it all together, this means that it takes a full 12 torque bow shots and 4 frag grenades to take down the big bad, and this brings General RAAM's effective health total to 71,600. What an absolute fucking unit. Hey, by the way, before I forget, I thought I was done editing the video, but apparently not. Berserkers have 12,000 HP on Insane, and you can still one-shot them with a torque bow, so that means General RAAM actually has over 137,000. Okay, bye. By the way, there is some other key information in the code that reveals General RAAM could actually die in way less damage, but that's not nearly as good of a narrative, so yeah, I'm not going over that. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something, I guess, and if you want to talk about more unnecessary details of these games, leave a comment and subscribe for any more of these videos, or just come through on the live stream and come vibe with us. Later.